So, welcome everyone to my blab. I'm Cara, and next to me is Leanne Isaacson. Today, I'm actually discussing community, and this has come about through a number of different ways. Mostly from the fact that I'm a mother of two kids who are permanently attached to their iPads. Well, not permanently, I probably exaggerate a little, but it's often strange that I can walk into the lounge room, my husband's on his laptop, the kids are on their iPads, and I suddenly grab my phone or something to do something. So I was curious to discuss community. Yeah, screen time and less FaceTime. I shall. So I
I
sorry.
just didn't want to interrupt the flow. That's all.
No. So if you're unaware, I run everything from a basis of psychology. I have a degree in psychology and 15 years of experience in e-business. So everything that I come to comes from a psychology background. So of course I've got a definition having that background. And the definition that I've found is really quite a simple one when it comes to community, and it's a group of people with unique shared values, behaviour, and artifacts. So that's the definition that I found for community, and I really liked it because it was quite a broad definition per se. But so what I wanted to do is ask, and I'll get this started in Twitter as well, is does your idea of community differ online to in real life? So if we take that example of the kids, and we're all sitting on the lounge and we're all doing our different things, do you see it as any different, Leanne?
No, actually. Yes and
Because
no.
you live in a rural community. I live in a
Yeah.
local community. I have school community.
Hmm.
Is it any different?
I actually don't think it does. Probably the only difference is with the community that we have online, we can't physically touch them.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, for me, that really is probably the only difference. I think, we've proved that we can build as strong a community online as we can build offline. I think the online community that we build sometimes can take us away from our offline community.
Mm.
But I think if people are aware of that and actually make a conscious decision to, like, I've just had 40 hours off Blab. Almost. I know.
Unheard of.
It is unheard of. And the reason that I had that amount of time off Blab is because I went with my parents and my sister back to the community that I grew up in and I lived within, as you know, when I went back when I got married, and we lived back in that community for 18 years. So we went back to a 21st birthday party in that community. So for me, it was seeing all of, some people I'd actually grown up with, and one fella that I went to school with actually came from Wagga just for the 21st birthday. So he, Tim's just said he thought there was something missing when I was off Blab. So he was there. There was a lot of people that, like I said, I grew up with, and then we had children together, and so this is one particular, a relative that has got Henry turned 21, same as what my daughter is. So it was actually probably a perfect example of a whole range of ages. So we had there were kids there that were 14 and 15 that were kids of friends of mine. There was, people my age. And then there were also my parents and some of the grandparents of others as well. So it was just a fantastic night. And then yesterday we came back, and then I went to my parents' friend's golden wedding anniversary. So I spent the afternoon with oldies,
with a
effectively,
different
and
generation.
a whole different generation. And so my weekend has been very much a community, family, friend weekend in, face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite sure where I was going with that story, but anyway, that so for me, not being online for that amount of time, there were times I thought, oh God, I wonder what everyone's up to. And probably given the fact that we didn't have very good internet service, I was lucky that I couldn't actually get my phone out and, see who was blabbing. But
get that
exactly. But, but from the perspective, like I've come back today and I've done, some work things in my own world. I've got some things to do on the farm, but I've also connected with my friends here online in this. So, is it different? No, I actually don't think it is. I think, we all form relationships in all sorts of different ways, and the communities are similar.
So, and I'm the same. I've got to say, I don't see a difference between online and offline. I have different communities that I associate with online. Like I said, I've got, school communities and friends from high school, and people here on Blab that I associate with, and I don't see them. They function the same way. They still function the same way. I have Facebook groups that I participate in. But I was just curious as to whether or not anybody else was experiencing it the same way, and had any different, opinions or beliefs. So the next question that I had was, and this is more as a business owner, is, do you include stakeholders as part of your community? So when I'm talking about stakeholders, it's not just customers, so it's suppliers and bosses and staff and, those kinds of things. Do you include those people in your community?
Jeepers, Cara, I came on to rescue your Blab. I didn't come on to have to think too deeply. Jeepers.
I know. And I am. Poor Robert. Robert's going, yeah, I'll really get into this, and he's missing all the juicy questions.
He is missing the juicy questions.
Oh, Bryn's joining us.
All rabbits, friends, and relations. Tim.
Hi, Bryn. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a big fan of juicy questions.
Oh, good. I've always been told I ask the best questions, so.
And Leanne, it's so good to see you. Yeah. And thanks for popping in and giving me some props earlier.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated. Once, you tweeted me out, and then like 7 more people came in. It was so awesome.
Excellent. I'm glad.
It was awesome. So appreciated.
So, Cara, your question about, do you include, your business suppliers and things?
Yeah.
That is an interesting question. Let me ponder that for a few minutes.
So repeat the question.
Okay. So do you include your stakeholders in your community? So whether it's managers, staff, suppliers, clients?
Yes. So we all have different communities. Like if we look at it, we have our household, we have our neighborhood, we have our church or synagogue, we have maybe a political affiliation, or maybe we're on a board of directors somewhere, and we have community inside of our business. So I do think that although, if you can look at them all as your community, I think a
Mhm.
lot of people can get segmented and have sub-communities. So I really do believe that your vendors are really important for lots of reasons. I mean, so your vendors may have more connections than a lot of your networking partners, right? So one of the things, I will often say, and Leanne will talk about strategic alliances. I mean, you're a huge networker, Leanne, so I think you might agree with this, is building your relationships with people that have large networks is game changing. And a lot of times we miss out on those vendors that really know a heck of a lot more people than we might. So you said business supplies. I actually had a local business supply person. It wasn't like a Staples. It was called All-in-One Office Supply. And one of the things I thought was really interesting that they would do is for their customers, you could give them flyers and they would stick them in the boxes of all their other clients.
Oh, cool.
So when they delivered things, I could have a flyer about a live class I was having in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Or work's always working. Right. So from my perspective, leveraging those relationships in creative ways can be incredibly beneficial.
Yep. And going back to the first question that I asked, Bryn, does your idea of community differ online to in real life?
So I think my online community is a sub-community of my entire community. That's a lot of communities, right? But I'm actually launching a company, and there are 9 of us. I have 8 partners, and we're launching in January, and I have never in person met one of them.
Wow.
I met not one, right? So Vivica von Rosen, I don't know if you know who she is.
Yep.
Beth Granger, Andy Foote. A lot of them were all playing on Blab right now.
Yeah.
And Michael DeGrout. So a lot of the Blab people were finding this to be a really good place. So we're launching a business together. Michael's in the UK. Vivica's in Colorado. Ted's in California. Andy's in Chicago. Bob's in Kentucky. We have Colleen in DC and Lindsay in North or South Carolina. I don't even know I think one of the Carolinas. Pretty sure. So these are my business partners. Never met one. So the social community is just as strong. That's where I'm getting. It can be just as strong, but it's one of those segmented communities. So if I were to look at all the people that matter in my world, it's a pretty large community. But a lot of them never overlap.
Yep.
So even though they're all my community, and then I'm in a lot of sub-communities that may never overlap into other places. So, but I think they all have to be honored in the way that each individual community needs to be honored.
There was a question, and this gives us the opportunity to loop back around to it, is that do you think that your online personality needs to be consistent to help you with your community?
So that's a really good question. I would say each of my communities has a different authentic me. So I try to be as authentic as I possibly can wherever I am, but I have it's like when I'm out with the girls, it's different than when I'm on a date with my husband, and it's different when I'm hanging out with my kids. And there's not one that's more authentic than the other. It just is a little bit different because I'm not going to be the same with my kids as I am with my girlfriends.
Just different parts of Bryn.
Yeah, I would never, ever curse on LinkedIn, ever. I've let a couple slide in Blab. Right? Yeah. But I would never write it in LinkedIn. I mean, and I'm not even a curse. There was just an opportunity that I did. I'm like, I can't believe, because it was just this friendly kind of community of women, and we were having fun, and someone used the word, and then I used the word, and I'm like, really? I just did that. At home, it just flies. Right?
Look,
And, you know,
and I'm the same. I'm the same. You will rarely hear me swear
in public.
online.
But
No.
I stub my toe and the F-bomb goes. So is one more authentic than the other? I don't think so. I just think we learn how to be appropriate in the community that we're in at the moment.
I think it's to do with the respect as well, the respect that you have for the other people that are in there as well. Like, I don't swear around my children. It's not the thing that I want to teach them. But, you know, around my girlfriends, it doesn't mean that I respect them any less. I suppose respect was the wrong word. I just feel more comfortable.
What's appropriate at the moment.
It also depends on, you know, like Cara, your kids are much younger than my kids. So when my kids were your age, I maybe, you know, when they were younger, I might have sworn a bit. I mean, being, you know, if they were out in the ute with their father, they would have well and truly, especially if they were behind a mob of cattle that were going in the wrong direction, they would have sure as hell heard a lot of language. But, you know, did we bring them up that was not the right language? Sure.
Yeah.
So now that they're 24 and 21, it's a completely different kettle of fish. And so, you know, I think that, there's certainly different, you know, stages, but I think you're right. I mean, if we were in a blab it's all right. I'm trying to read the comments as well as not.
I'm reading. You talk, I'll read.
You talk, I'll talk, you read. But I think it is, you know, it's about having, you know, most people, like I'm online, I'm pretty much the same as I am offline. You know, I very rarely any different. Probably the only different is the actual language and from that perspective.
But, you know, Chuck is talking about how one would be false. And see, I disagree. I think in general, pretty authentic. I put on no airs. I don't necessarily have a filter in my personal life, and every once in a while. I'm self-employed because I could be an HR nightmare. Like, I really could, because, you know, but at the end of all of this, there are places for things. Like, you would not go in front of the Queen and be rude, right? But with my husband, I might be occasionally.
Yeah.
And I just think and that might be a comfort level. So I think we all have many faces. And I think we all really need to admit that, because you're different in McDonald's than you would be in a fine dining restaurant. You know, you let your kids run around in a park, but you wouldn't let them run around in a movie theater, right? And maybe it's respect, but there are definitely rules, and there are definitely, you know, we all are different at different times, and I don't think one is authentic or inauthentic. You know, the issue is when you try to pretend you're something you're not.
Yeah.
And that's right. That's when it becomes inauthentic, and where you'll kill a community overnight.
Yeah. And that is exactly it, Bryn, is that you will see if people are not authentic and they're not being consistent and those kinds of things. And, I keep thinking of the quote from Shrek about layers.
Absolutely.
We all have layers.
We all have layers.
So one layer is no or less authentic than the other. So, but it was an interesting point that Ryan had brought up that, you know, I thought, I'm sorry that I'd skipped over it, that needed to be addressed. So the next question that I have then is community still limited by location? So Leanne, you were talking about this before, you know, how you went home, you went back home. So do you think our idea of community is limited by location? Especially, when we've got two South Australians and a lady from the States, plus a whole heap of people from other parts of the globe here. Now,
No,
the conversation.
No, community isn't defined. Well, it depends. I mean, no, it's not defined by location, because even when I went back to the Mallee, with the friends that I spent the weekend with, they all lived within a radius of probably 150 kilometres. So, in one way, yes, that's a geographic location, but then when you actually narrow it down, there's still a distance between them. So from a location perspective, it's really not relevant. It's actually what brings the people together that's more important, rather than necessarily the location.
Which I think in one way could be a location, but it's not limited to that.
Yeah, it's not a geographic location. It's a time and space.
So like tonight, my kids and all their friends many of their friends from school all went to a local haunted house. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's a physical community. There is no way, no matter, they have cousins in Colorado halfway around, more than halfway across the country. Excuse me, my goodness, I should not be drinking on blabs. And it's just water, really. I'm sorry. See, now I wouldn't do that on LinkedIn either. No, I'm kidding. But their physical community was at this haunted house and the hayride and all that stuff. And their other community, which might be their cousins in Colorado, were not part of that. That didn't make them not part of their whole community, but it's not like they could have called them and said, hey, come join us at our haunted house. So I do think there's the physical community location is one of those sub communities.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
It does. And Chuck's just, made a comment that my farming community, which might be different to my online community, or is it the same? And in a lot of ways, it's the same, actually, because, when I think about, I will come on to, into the blab community that I'm within, and, literally jumping into this blab, for me, it's a blab that I'm sitting here thinking, okay, there's a lot of things that we're talking about that are not necessarily, would be something that I would be focused on in any other part of my world, and thinking about the conversations and the community, that I was back on the weekend. I had lots of conversations with people that were not within my sphere of what I would normally talk about, but that the whole conversation was such that we were all drawn into giving our own opinions and ideas and experience. So I'm not even quite sure what I'm saying, but anyway, there you go.
I think I got what you were saying, but don't ask me to summarize it.
No, I'm not really sure either.
I think you were saying exactly the same thing that Bryn was saying.
Good.
From
I think Leanne and I are pretty consistent with
in more ways than one.
Plus, right at this point in time, I'm actually thinking about that phone call was John out on the tractor saying, "Are you coming out to take over from me?" And so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm really actually enjoying this conversation, but the tractor's calling me, so I really probably should actually jump out and go and hop onto the tractor, so I could probably continue the conversation from my tractor. It'll just be, instead of the white wall, you'll see me on the tractor.
That would be fun.
So I could do that. So sorry, Cara, to interrupt the flow of things, but I probably had actually better disappear, and I'm more than happy to call in from the tractor in 10 minutes time.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Well, I will leave you with the next question to think about.
Okay,
and you can come back to us. So what role do here we go. What role do mobile devices have in community? There you go. You can think about that one whilst you go and get ready
to. It means I can blab wherever I am. I can blab from the tractor. I will return.
All right, thanks, Leanne.
Bye, Leanne. She's so awesome.
She is.
Awesome.
She's great.
I so enjoy her. So for mobile devices is an interesting one because I think mobile devices have absolutely transformed all communities. From the ability to get a tweet about an earthquake that happened. So I don't know if you heard this story. And even the geographic. So Maryland is about maybe 150 miles from Manhattan, New York. Mm-hmm. And there was an earthquake in Maryland, and people in New York knew about it from Twitter and then felt it.
Wow.
Right? So how's that for community and mobile? And this is probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 years ago even. But that was like this moment of power. I mean, it was all of 2 minutes, maybe, not even. And they were like, did you hear there was and that's what mobile does. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that all the desktops and tablets in the world would be the same. We all have our phones glued to our hip 24/7. And so it absolutely changes our community. It changes how we communicate with our community. The fact that we can get instant messaging and, my kids need me, they can text me and I've got it in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So I really believe mobile is a significant piece of community communication.
I think I've got a really good example. We had some big bushfires, so what you would call forest fires here last year, and we're coming into the next season of it here in Australia. And what community did was open up doors to people and replicate much quicker the effects of going down the street and saying to your neighbors, look, did you hear about so and so? They're having a rough time. They lost their house. Mm-hmm. They've their stock needs feed, or their stock needs water, or those kinds of things. And it drew the community together faster than what it would have had it not existed. And it also meant that the spread could go wider as well. So we had a lot of horses affected by the fires. And what it meant was that people were actually coming into the affected areas and taking the horses out and adjusting them elsewhere where they were no longer going to be affected, and the owners didn't have to worry about the horses. And that wouldn't have happened. People were traveling for hundreds of kilometers to get into this area to get the horses out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chuck.
There is a website that I'm looking for, which is used for classroom parties. When they have a list of all the things, so here's the classroom, here are the 10 things that we need. And I can't, it's a party, and I'm going to find it. But this would be such a great opportunity that if someone has a need, that what happens is when someone fills the need, it gets checked off.
Yep.
Party RSVP and sign up. I wish I could. My kid's school has sent that at times where they have like. I wonder if it's through Evite, but maybe not.
And holistic insight. Yeah, my kids have just been asked to take iPads.
Yeah, it's called Sign Up Genius.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to give you this, but this would be an amazing if something like that happens in a community when they have a list of the things they need. So, and the only reason it made me think of this, I don't think it's ever been used for this, but like I'll go in and it'll say they need napkins and straws and pretzels. And then when you say I'm bringing napkins, it's off the list. And then anyway, isn't that awesome?
That is awesome, because I have 2 kids in 2 different classes and they're soon to be in 2 different schools. And if I could use that and go, yeah, I'm bringing this and this and this, it's done. And it's saved double up, like just for the school situation.
And so it's great for that, but I'm even thinking if you have someone that had a house fire and there's an issue and now they need pots and they need clothes in size 10 or they need shoes for their kids in these sizes, I mean, you could put everything down and then people know what they need.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a wedding registry.
That's a good point. Holistic Insight, you were saying about kids and getting access to his kids or their kids at school, and they were told to text their child to get a message to them. My kids now have iPads at school, and my daughter sent me an email from school. I was like, oh wow, this is a bit weird. I'm not used to receiving the information back this way. But it helps with that school community, I think, and they're sharing stuff. So I think mobile devices, actually used the right way, assist in communities. They don't have to be destructive. I mean, the question came from the idea of, you have parents sitting around the kitchen table and everyone's on their phone, or like I said, we're sitting on the lounge of a night time and the kids are on their iPads, hubby's on his laptop and I'm on my phone. And it's like, well, how does this affect our little household community? But so I wanted to ask the question about if anyone, what everybody else thought about it as well. So yeah, exactly. I've made so many friends online as well.
I made business partners online. Again, ones I've never met.
That's true. And so if we use that, the next question that I have is, has live streaming influenced community? Because Leanne was saying that the difference for her was the face-to-face. When she went home, was the face-to-face. But here, you and I are speaking face-to-face. So...
And I feel like I would know you as well after this than if we had some coffee together.
Yep.
Like I definitely feel connected to the people, much more connected to the people on Blab and Periscope. So Robert's one of them. I watched him on Periscope and he was funny, entertaining, gave a few great tips, and that was it. But I didn't feel connected to him until Blab. And then I could have a conversation with him, and now I feel like he's an important person in my community. And, so live streaming Periscope Meerkat, although I think that's a great way to brand and get your message out, and you could build a tribe, I don't think it's the same community that you're building with Blab.
Why do you think that?
Because I think real community is two ways. The communication is two ways. So I can be a thought leader on Periscope, or Robert or whomever, right? I could be a thought leader on Periscope, and I can have a tribe of people that are excited to follow me. But to me, a community has to have a two-way conversation. And I'm not sure that a Periscope or a Meerkat can really create a community. It creates a following, and I think there's a difference between your following and your community.
Yep. So it's about sending information out as compared to having a discussion on something. It's different levels of community for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's probably why you see me less on Periscope now than you do on Blab. Hi, Ryan.
Hello,
how are
Ryan?
you?
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Cara. Can you go back to your definition of community again for me?
Sure. It's a group of people with unique shared values, behavior, and artifacts.
Okay. So one of the comments I made in the post was I believe that we have spheres of community that radiate from ourself. We have ones that are very close to us, which are our sphere of care. So let's call that our immediate family, and we'll have a behavior that is consistent within that sphere of care. Our spouse, our children, our immediate family, Then we have a radiating greater sphere, which I'll call our sphere of concern, that will have some consistency with our sphere of care, but it's going to be a little bit different because we're radiating away from ourselves. Then we have a bigger sphere as those that we want to influence. So if we can speak clearly about a topic in our sphere of care without fear of risk, our risk gets greater as we step aside, so that there's not going to be consistency, in my opinion, radiating out those spheres, but we're going to be consistent within the sphere.
I love that. That's
yeah.
So
is that where you were talking about authenticity, Ryan?
Yeah, the authenticity is still within that sphere. You're authentic within your one sphere. It's very transcendent if you can have the courage and strength to be authentic all the way through all spheres. So in your example, Bryn, that you have no problem with the profanity at home, because that's just, well, I'm just rephrasing what you said.
It's true. No, you're 100% right. It just sounds really bad when I hear it back.
But it's not a judgment thing. It's just it's a point. So when we radiate outside that sphere, you identified in the LinkedIn community, you wouldn't use that language, right?
Right.
So you're consistent in this one sphere, and because of how it affects those relationships in your sphere of influence, you choose not to exhibit that behavior.
Correct.
So, and that's what I think is part of humanity, that we make those decisions to modify ourselves based upon where we are in our ability to extend ourselves and expose ourselves to risk. And as a psychologist, Kara, I think that you would see that you would have a relationship that would be with your clients, which is completely different than the relationship that you would have within your family, because it's a very clear boundary that you need to hold. So
yeah, and I'll say I'm not a psychologist. I'm a psychology graduate. So, but I do have clients. I have coaching clients. So I do understand what you mean from that level. So,
well, my wife is a clinician, so I know that there's a hard break from a clinician standpoint, that for legal reasons, but for client reasons, that they can't do that. And I think we all have that, and we may flex those boundaries depending upon if we want them to get into our sphere of care. So an influence can move its way in, or we can take people and move them out. And I do both. I have them migrate back and forth.
So Ryan, do you have a book? Because this is...
I'm writing a book, yes, because the other point for me is the social media experience. It's that being an honest person, striving to be honest, because I could not say I don't lie, because I do. That's, people lie.
Everyone does. Everyone. So, no matter how hard you try.
Right. So the piece of my social media presence that is me personally, my private personal social media presence, I behave in one manner because I'm very passionate with my friend group in that social media experience. And they know my core values as I speak in that presence. When I am in another presence, that world should not come into this world until they understand the core of me, that they can understand why I am this way in my social media presence. So my way of communicating is very powerful and passionate, but some people may not be able to accept that kind of communication, and they have to go know more about me in my community before they dive into that presence.
You are so amazingly articulate on this subject. I mean, obviously it's a passion of yours.
My passion is about kids. And community for kids is a completely different thing. So there's been a change in the culture that parents are friends with their kids as opposed to parents of the kids. And that the institutions are taking on a hope to develop resiliency in the children, which is really a parental responsibility to develop resiliency in the children. And the school has them for 10 hours a day, and the parents have them for 4 hours a day of productive time. And the internet is the undermining factor and distraction from any potential positive outcome of developing resiliency in children. So my passion is keep kids safe on the internet, and it's failing miserably.
Well, no, I love that. You know, it's interesting. My kids just turned 13, and I had a rule of no shooter games. No, you can play Minecraft, you can play racing games, you can play anything you want, no shooter games. And I said to them, and they just had a bar mitzvah, so I said, if you are now responsible enough to make these decisions on your own, although I hope, I mean, because they're going to do it behind my back if I want to be really clear. And I said, but I hope that you understand there are consequences. I do believe they are formed, and playing shooter games now at 13 for the first time is going to be a very different experience than growing up with them from 6, 7, 8, 9. And I've talked so much about how horrendous they are. And I have a friend whose grandson was killed in Sandy Hook. And so, you know, they understand the horrendous around that. And now at 13, because we talked about it so much, they've chosen not to.
Mm.
Yeah, they'll get the Star Wars game, so they'll probably kill in the Star Wars game, but it's a little different.
They're less likely to get a hold of a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, and you know, at the end, and that's their request, and that's fine. But I think the interesting thing, I think, though, is we have to have the conversations. One of the biggest problems, so I have a daughter who's 25, and I learned from her best friend, who ended up in a ton of trouble, that you have to start with trust first. So I have told my kids, told my kids, I trust you 100% till you give me a reason not to.
Yep.
Don't give me a reason not to.
Is respect awarded or is respect earned?
Respect is earned. They have to earn it, and I have to earn it.
So is respect earned based upon their ability to be trustworthy or not trustworthy?
I guess who they are as people right now, they've earned the right to be trustworthy. So that may be just my children that worked out that way. They're good kids. And they're 13. I know what I've already raised a teenager to 25. But what I learned is the parents that start with the idea of I don't trust you are the ones whose kids really end up screwed up, because they get to the point where, like, they're not going to trust me anyway. I might as well have fun.
So I want to help Kara stay on topic with her community.
Sorry, I can't help it. I love that.
That's all right. I was letting you go.
Yeah, and I don't want to hijack your blab at all. But I think relative to our understanding of community, whether it be our family or our sphere of concern or sphere of influence, that the conversation is an element of it. And my platforms are for children, it's talking about first with parental awareness, then parental oversight, and then parental controls. That just fits into the vein of me trying to keep kids safe, that it starts with our awareness. So talking about community, I want to look at what is my awareness? Am I looking at things in a very narrow view, or am I looking at it in a broad view? And you brought up like live streaming and the difference between the Periscope live streaming, which is 1 to many, and the Blab community, which is 4 to many. And then there's other platforms like Appear, which is secured 8, or Zoom US, or whatever. All these different types of live streaming communities. I think we need to be aware inside those communities how we behave in that community. How I behave in my Periscope community is one way, in the way I speak and present to them. I build an introduction into this community. They get to see me more authentically in a face-to-face communication. Then I get into another one. So I'm navigating this based upon my new awareness of what I'm going to be engaging in these types of media.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that leads quite nicely into my next question, Ryan, is do you consider the overlap of communities? It's not a question of if there is do you actually consider it when you are moving within or between communities? So is that a conscious decision, or are you aware of it?
I am aware of it because I'm not a social media marketing person, which I think a lot of these people across the top are. That's not my business. So I'm learning about the dynamics that are experienced inside each of those different platforms, and both the positive dynamics and the negative dynamics, because you have negative dynamics, which is the other side of the digital connection, which you can't control. So yes, there's overlap and there's behavior and there's awareness that I have to keep in mind with what is consistent across those different platforms and what is dangerous across those platforms and what you can and cannot say in those platforms.
Yeah.
I got an amen. But did I just get an amen, or was that somebody else? Oh, that was somebody else.
No.
Oh, I was responding to, and being trustworthy goes hand in hand in social media and everyday life. Trust is so vital.
Mike was saying
that goes to integrity, though, doesn't it? Because integrity is the underlying value of trust. So I link them in my mind that my integrity is not what I can stand in a garage and call myself a car. But if you don't see evidence that you can put fuel in me and you can drive me around the block, no matter what I say about myself doesn't matter. So I can call myself trustworthy. I can call myself integrity, but that doesn't mean anything until somebody knows me and they can say, man, that guy has got integrity because.
Well, that's it. No one can define themselves as trustworthy. That's defined by your community.
And how you treat others.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe, and if you can say I live my life with integrity, but if the perception of everyone in your world is different, then you're lying to yourself.
Either that or you're a narcissist. That's the other option.
Or you're a narcissist. Yes,
right,
absolutely.
So I didn't mean to hijack your
This was so amazing, and I know that this was but Ryan, I feel so fortunate to have met you tonight.
Thank you
awesome.
very much.
This is great.
And if you have interest about how kids are at risk or need to be safe on the internet, just check me out. I'm still in the beta stage of trying to figure out this social media marketing nightmare that.
So can I make a recommendation for you to look at Udemy? Have you looked at that yet?
Yeah, I have. I have not looked. I haven't given it due diligence. Because of the Blab community, I have really gotten connected with some nonprofit people, which are saying, "Man, you've got how many lessons? You've got a university course in what you've built, and we need to find a way to package you that would be attractive to many different audiences, institutions, academic, teachers, professors, parents."
And I'm sure there is a much bigger course, but if you can put a 1-hour course together into Udemy.
I have an hour course, I have a 3-hour course, I have a 5-hour course, and I have a 5-day seminar.
So I would highly recommend you considering just doing a 1-hour course on Udemy. It's going to give you an enormous amount of exposure, and it's a place to send people when you're looking to build the bigger course.
All right, I will look at that. Chuck is chiming in on the side, and he heard me earlier today. And I admit I'm not the social media guy. I didn't want to hijack your Blab.
No.
So, and I honestly have to run and pick up my wife and daughter coming in from Massachusetts. So, I would like to pick up the replay. So I tweeted it out. I'll pick up the replay. If you don't mind, I'll connect with you, Kara.
Yeah, please do.
I'm not sure what do you do, Bryn?
I actually teach people how to grow their business leveraging LinkedIn and their community.
LinkedIn.
So leveraging client relationships and networking relationships to get in front of the right people.
Follow you too. I am not a LinkedIn person. I've found that to be very disingenuous from my experience.
Well, I'll show you. I'll tweet you a 5-tip video. It's all about business development, but it's a great way for you to connect with people you might not otherwise have even known existed.
Very good. All right.
So,
thanks for joining, Ryan.
Thank you. All right, Leanne is back, so I'm going to hop off,
okay,
Kara.
Thank you for joining.
No. I didn't want to distract. This is where I am now. I am on my tractor. I really am.
She's out in the field.
I'm in different
You
clothes.
are.
I'm in my farm clothes now. I am. Well, the other clothes I had on were a bit cool for being on the tractor, seeing my tractor doesn't have a door. My tractor doesn't have a door.
Oh,
So it's a little bit cool today. It's not quite as warm as it's been.
it is a bit cool, isn't it? So the next question, actually, what did I leave you with? The role of mobile devices.
Yes, look, here we are. This is probably a perfect example. So, and that's probably why I love working online and doing what I do, because effectively I can work from wherever I am. And so if, here I am sitting on the tractor, and apart from the fact that right at this instant I've stopped because I was actually going to concentrate on holding the phone, but mobile devices have just now given us the ability to have in our hand the rest of the world.
They have. That's true. And that was what we'd come to, was the fact that mobile devices had allowed communities to act and interact faster than the old talk down the end of the street kind of situation of years gone by. So the next question that I was asking was,
can I just say, sorry, I was just going to make a comment, and I didn't hear everything that Ryan was talking about, but if there's like the Californian cops have been doing some blabs on security online for kids and that sort of thing, so he might be interested in connecting with so there's LA Cyber Cop, so that's Tony Moore. I'm not sure whether Ryan's still on here.
No, he's not, but he's watching the replay.
Yeah, okay. So Tony Moore, whose handles LA Cyber Cop, and then there's Mike Beerers, and there's Arlen, and there's Marty. So there's sort of three Californian cops that have been doing some blabs on social media and security and internet security for kids. So might be good for him to connect with them.
Definitely. There are a number of police officers on Blab that are quite passionate about online security or cyber security. So Ryan, definitely check them out whilst you're watching, after you caught this on the replay. So the next question that I was going to ask is, how do you encourage community? So for me, the main thing is interacting with it is the best way to encourage community whilst Leanne's busy working, is to interact and to participate openly and honestly and fully in your community. Are there any other ways that people... Asking questions is another brilliant way to encourage and engage community.
And I think it's also, like bringing, like for me, like I've identified different people in different communities that I'm involved with, and actually bringing them into other communities that they're not already exposed to. So I think it's the cross-pollination, and like you get to the stage where members of a particular community, if they'll fit into other parts as well. So it's the cross-pollination of communities also.
Yep. Yeah, and that was what we were talking about whilst you were getting out to field. Exactly. About overlap of communities. So that's good that you see that the cross-pollination helps with encouraging and engaging. And I suppose it also helps shift communities as well. It shifts members between communities or brings members into communities. So that works. Like, when people started off on Blab, most of us heard of it through Periscope or Twitter. So we were part of those communities and pulled into it from those communities into the Blab community. So that was good good way to encourage and engage.
Is my sound too loud,
No,
Cara?
it's fine. It's fine. I'm just trying to do like 3 things at once. So
So am I.
that is true. Fair call. Fair call.
And now I do need to say I don't advocate blabbing and driving, but at this point in time, and I quite often say, I'm not putting anyone's danger in life. The only danger would be my own if I don't rake this hay. And John would be very cross.
Exactly.
So there is no one else around to actually put anyone's life in danger. And I'm probably maybe doing 5 kilometres an hour.
I was going to say I could probably walk and keep up with the tractor.
Yes, you would, well and truly. Exactly.
And that is the reason why I would allow you on, because I know that you're on the tractor. I don't advocate scoping and driving or blabbing and driving.
No.
So,
I was going to say, I'll show you. There is nothing else in my world.
Yeah.
That I can be doing any harm to whatsoever.
Exactly.
Like I said, apart from myself if I do it wrong.
So the next question that I have is how do you handle change in your community? So I've had to, I've transitioned my community from pure technical advice to the psychology of social media. So mine's been about educating. That's how I've helped transition my community through. How else do you see that or do that?
Yeah, probably. I think it's recognising where the community is and providing new opportunities where you see that can actually add to the community, and showing different ways of operating. And I'm not quite sure what else just off the top of my head, seeing I'm trying to do 15 million things.
No, that's new opportunities is a good point.
And I know that so years ago when I used to facilitate a lot of adult education out in our whole rural region, and for me it was about just trying different things and exposing them to different ways of learning. And at the 10 years ago, I ran a sort of almost a trial, I got a scholarship to look at online learning in rural regions. And so what I wanted to do was actually expose, there was a lot of technology that was in communities that was not being used. It was really only being used for meetings and boring stuff. So there was only a handful of people actually using it. And so I figured if we could actually get them using it for fun, then the technology would be irrelevant. It would be the learning that was the focus. And so I ran some wine appreciation via video conference. And what that did is, it brought a level of learning that wasn't accessible within our local region, but it also showed that the technology could be adapted for whatever opportunity that we presented. And this is the same example. Here I am sitting on my tractor. I could be giving you a lesson in how to rake loose and hay, for example, which is what I'm doing at the moment. But it's opening people's minds to the potential and how it can be used. And most things are really only, in a lot of cases you don't know what you don't know. So if people within communities can actually bring different perspectives and different information and different ideas, and while someone will think of a use of something, someone else will think of a different use. And so it's just about, just bringing different ideas. And I think that's the beauty of communities, when we've all got different perspectives and different styles and communication and learning, then all of that meshed together just adds to a really vibrant community.
Do you think we overemphasize the fear of change?
Yeah. And I think that, especially for me in the rural areas that I've worked within, we quite often use, we're all striving for perfection, and nothing, if we waited for something to be perfect, then we would never do it.
Mhm.
And like, I know that a lot of people use the excuse of, well, we don't have good enough internet access, or, it's too far to drive, or like, there's all sorts of excuses. And look, at the end of the day, if something doesn't work, unless you're a surgeon that you've got someone's life in your hands or something, like, at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, and so it just means that if it doesn't work in one way, we actually adapt and work out ways of doing things differently. So I think for me, that's what, it's about having different ideas and doing things different ways and seeing what works and what doesn't. And if it doesn't work, well, it's trying that's the most important thing.
Yeah, so Walter's saying that, some change is good, can be good, but sometimes it's terrifying though. But what I was saying, Walter, is sometimes I think we overemphasize people's fear of change, and that can hold them back. And I don't necessarily think that everyone is afraid of change. Some people are actually quite happily embrace change. I'm one of them. I will happily embrace change. I'm not afraid of change. I look at it as opportunities, but if we in the main think, oh, but people are afraid of change, well, no, not everyone actually is. And if maybe we give our communities the options and the reasons and the benefits and those kinds of things, then there is no fear. It dispels the fear and it allows them to move quicker and easier into that change. So,
and I think, one of the things that I've noticed is, like, every community needs to have, someone driving that community, and whether that's and whether that's, one, like, you always see particular people in a community that are the ones that will always do things. And I think it's also recognizing that there's also, there's so many roles and people participate in different ways, and in communities that's particularly relevant because not everyone does things the same way.
Yep.
And yeah,
no. What it does do, Leanne, is lead nicely into my final question. Is do you or would you outsource community management for your business? So, like, for example, Brittany's community manager for Black Management. Do you necessarily think it's authentic to do that, or and people in the chat, if you respond 1 for yes and 2 for no, I'd just be interested to know. So Tim says yes, he would outsource community management.
I think
Chuck says yes.
Yeah, well, and like I have, like my horse community on Facebook, I certainly have some, I have a VA that has managed a lot of the social media posting and that sort of thing. I think so. It's probably having someone develop an understanding of what the community is and what the outcomes are and the underlying values of a community. You certainly wouldn't want. So I'll just have to concentrate for 1 second because I'm going to turn around. And not multitasking. But you certainly wouldn't want somebody managing a community that didn't have the same values and understanding of the outcomes of what the community is wanting to achieve or what the community is about. So I think that probably comes down to who's actually managing the community.
Yeah, exactly. And that's basically what's happening in the chat is that sure with oversight or once they understood what was the aims, the values, the goals, the beliefs, the acceptable behaviors, there is a lot of training that would sit around taking on that role. But I was just curious if people were prepared to make that shift. So
can I just make it just another comment? As you know, I will. Is about having. I know it's hard to believe. It's about having a community that's not reliant on one person. Because if that person, so let me take the tractor out of gear, so I'm not having to stretch to put my foot on the clutch. Seeing I'm not that, my legs are shorter than John's when he's driving it. But like I was involved in an education sort of community back in our Mallee region, and I was very conscious of the fact that it became. I was the leader of it, and I was, at some point in time, I was the coordinator and I was the chair, but I was very conscious of it not being solely about me, and I would go places, I'd facilitate a course, so literally I would identify a need in the community, I would find someone to teach that, and then I would put the, advertise it, so I'd get people to come and do that. So I was effectively the hub of putting it all together. Yep. And I never remember, and quite a few times, there was one particular workshop. It was a farm management planning workshop, and the guy that was running it, his first question to everyone there was, so why have you come along today? Why are you actually doing this course? Just about everyone said, because Leanne told us to. Like, no, that's not why you're here. So, there was these 10 people in the room saying, we only came because Leanne told us to. And so I was always very conscious that this organisation, while I was the public face of it, that at one point, if I fell off the face of the earth, then, I didn't want it to be just about me. So I was very careful to bring people along with me and give them the skills that because I knew that I wouldn't be there forever. And so, and the person that took over from when I left probably didn't have the same values and she didn't have that same vision or ability to engage people and bring them along and include them. And so after, I'm not sure how long, the organisation sort of disappeared. And so from my perspective, because I, had been, probably because I'd been the driver, and it was for me very hard to step back and go, that's not my responsibility. I've given everyone, as much information and engaged that as I could, but and to actually be able to step away and go, okay, that's actually not my responsibility. So that was really, for me, a really interesting whole thing, because I'd put a lot of, and the need was still there. It was just, there was just not the person that could, with the same personality, So I think that's one other thing that's, from my perspective, from, our community, that, then there were different people with different agendas, and so the whole thing really became derailed.
Yeah.
Is the need still there? Absolutely. But there's, there's not the organisation there to be able to implement that anymore.
It's a shame. And I think that also comes back to how you manage change in a community as well. Certainly those examples where, the face and the leadership within a community needs to change, or is forced to change, then, it's having a decent process to get that change through. But shared values and core values are incredibly important. Wow, what a conversation. I'm so thankful for having you here. Thank you to everyone who's participated in this blab. Thank you to those of you who've watched the replay through. Thank you to those who have participated in the Twitter chat. And I look forward to catching